sonsundu ithena ndikubuyana mpande yesikhova mna yenze njalo kakade ngonyaka ka-1993 ukudibanisa izizwe ngokwazo kanti kumhla ihanjelwa kukufa yavakala intshwane yabantwana besikolo beqhutywa ngumbongeni ngema freedom is coming tomorrow yalala yaqongqulusa into kamlokomane yathula yathi cwaka yathi zole ewe msikantu lozothetha ngaye ngumfo wasethunywa kwiphondo lasempuma koloni ewe yena kudlamini nguzisi bake bahlala kunye kakadelandani ibingunobhala nenkwenkwana kuye besithi kakade abantwana bomthonyama balambile bafuna inkululeko mna bendingubani namna kakade uba nezindaba manyanani msikantu nize nixela amajuba kunamhlanje nje bubuwenyewenye ningumfanekiso nikukutya kwabelungu 7 colors.
Oliver Tambo. Oliver Tambo. Umandela uzobusa. Umandela uzobusa. Umandela uzobusa. Umandela uzobusa. Oliver Tambo. Oliver Tambo. Umandela uzobusa. Umandela uzobusa. Tambo thetha nobota. Ay 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 ay. Oliver Tambo thetha nobota. Umandela uzobusa. Umandela uzobusa. Umandela uzobusa. Umandela uzobusa. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Sanbonani. Dumelang. Molweni. Welcome to the 5th annual Oliver Tambo Memorial Lecture. My name is Masechaba Ndlovu. 2017 has been devoted to the celebration of the life and the legacy and the work of a man for whom really, truly, the continent's busiest airport has been named after, O.R. Tambo International Airport. That deserves a round of applause. Oliver Reginald Tambo, fondly known as O.R., born in 1960, thank you, I was checking if you are still wide awake. I'm glad to know that y'all are woke. I'm not up here directing the program to a bunch of sheep. Thank you very much. Well done. I'm so honored and privileged to be standing in front of you today, ladies and gentlemen, and to be standing in front of the world, in front of every single news network that is here, to record this, document this very important event for everyone to see, because everyone deserves to know not only who O.R. Tambo was, but what he stood for. So before I continue, I would like to just recognize, excuse me, I need to fix my cape. I would like to recognize His Excellency President Thabo Mbeki. Bluetooth high five. Her First Lady, Mrs. Zanele Mbeki. Thank you so much to all the ministers, the deputy ministers, Premier David Makura. Ambassadors and high commissioners, members of the Tambo family, and our valued guests, thank you so much for being here tonight. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you are here with us, and we appreciate and we value you. And thank you so much to each and every single one of our attendees here tonight, the students, all the members of the public who are here. You are our VIPs. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, our vision as the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation is to continue the legacy of Oliver Reginald Tambo, to learn from his life, and literally to equip ourselves with the values that he embodied. Now, our previous speakers include President Jacob Zuma, Mr. Mac Maharaj, Reverend Frank Chikane, President Kgalema Motlanthe, Chief Justice Mogoeng Mogoeng. Yes! Hashtag lecture on fleek. As well as Dr. Brigalia Bam. And for our annual lecture tonight, our keynote speaker will be presented by President Thabo Mbeki. But for those of you who have studied the life of Ntate, O.R. Tambo, Mkulu, because today is his birthday. It is the 27th of October, and if he were alive, he would be celebrating his 100th birthday today. And I think we all need to give a round of applause to that. He's not here physically, but he's certainly here in spirit. I feel his presence. I learn from him every day. And if you know him in the way that I did not know him, I know him through stories that have been told through my grandparents, my parents, people who are as passionate about him as you are here today. And one of the things that you would know about him is the fact that he was deeply spiritual. Can I get an amen? I don't think I heard you. Can I get an amen? Thank you. Hallelujah. So there is no way that we could resume an event, an occasion as important as this without acknowledging, without honoring the spiritual element of O.R. Tambo. And here to help us open up this event, to do it right. After all, we are spirits on a human journey. The most revered Dr. Thabo Cecil Makgoba is the Archbishop of Cape Town and the Metropolitan of the Anglican Church of Southern Africa. He is here tonight, and he too has a story to tell within our history of the liberation struggle. He was born and spent his early years in Alexandra Township. And then after that, his family was forcibly removed. He spent the rest of his childhood in Pimville, Soweto, after his schooling at Orlando High. And he studied for a BSc at the University of Wits, right here. Yes, give yourselves a round of applause. And then trained as a priest at St. Paul's College in Grahamstown, where he earned a diploma in theology. So ever since moving to Cape Town, he has earned a PhD from the University of Cape Town for a thesis of divinity from the General Theological Seminary in New York and from Huron University College in Canada. And of course, UNISA, as well as the University of the South in Tennessee. So he's currently the Chancellor of the University of the Western Cape, and he's published books. He has a short autobiographical account, and he's here tonight to open up the event in prayer and to bless us before we begin this very important lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, help me welcome the Archbishop Thabo Makgoba. I know archbishops give handshakes, I give hugs.
Thank you, Program Director. Let me start my prayer with a disclaimer. I don't have a qualification from UNISA. The rest were correct. Let us pray. God of grace and steadfast love, we are grateful for those gathered here at Wits Great Hall and beyond to celebrate the life and witness of Oliver Reginald Tambo on this, the centenary of his birthday. Bless those who will speak, especially President Mbeki. And bless those who will listen, both here and across the country and the world. May our words help to capture the essence of this faithful, courageous servant of our nation. A devout Christian, a teacher, a stick fighter, a freedom fighter, a lover of life, a father, a husband, a brother, a liberator, and a democrat. May we feel and touch him through our celebration tonight. Lord of providence and abundance, we thank you for the many skills which you endowed OR. We thank you for his faith in you, and we are proud that he chose the Christian faith to walk his journey on earth. We are grateful for his exemplary life, a life that is befitting to emulate. Like all of us, he was fallible and human. Forgive him all his trespasses. We give thanks also for Adelaide, for his children, and all those in South Africa and the world who saw him as father. We thank you for the way in which the foundation and the family help us to remember him. As we recall his sacrificial, reconciling service, we acknowledge that not all has turned out the way he hoped it would, especially in this, our beloved country. We lament how we have failed to capture and implement his vision in a land where the poor are still poor and the rich get richer. We rejoice for the times when we have captured his vision of dignity, equality, and freedom for all. Help us to follow his example of selflessness in the face of so much selfishness. Help us to pursue justice and not money, to serve humanity and not to seek popularity. we commit to make amends by rededicating ourselves to those noble principles and objectives of our struggle for which he stood, building bridges across our continent and your world. And dear Lord, when you call us home, where OR and his trusted comrades now lie at your feet, we too pray that our children and our children's children will gather in celebration and say about us, "Well done, good and faithful servants. You were trustworthy in small matters and principled in great. Now enter into your rest." We offer these prayers in the name of Creator, Sustainer, and Redeemer of our lives. Amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend. So, I think every single person in this room pretty much has an idea of the fact that every single one of us is going to walk away full of knowledge or wisdom, full of important values that embody the legacy of Oliver Reginald Tambo. But before we go to our keynote speaker tonight, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce someone from the foundation. So we'll get to hear from His Excellency President Thabo Mbeki, and then we will have a cutting of the cake ceremony, which is quite a big deal. Of course, you cannot celebrate a birthday without cutting a cake, right? What is a birthday without a birthday cake? I don't know why you're laughing, but I mean, really. And then we'll have closing remarks from the CEO of the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation, Mme. Linda Vilakazi, who is an incredible visionary and a woman who is a woman after my own heart. But first of all, I'd like to welcome Ndate Dumankosi, who is a senior civil servant at the Economic Development Department, which he joined in 2011. And he is a chairman of the local government, SETA. He's also a director at Dikeni Investment Company Limited, and he was also executive mayor of Ekurhuleni Metropolitan Municipality from 2001 to 2008. Ladies and gentlemen, to give a welcoming address officially, he will hand over to His Excellency Thabo Mbeki. Kindly help me welcome our Deputy Chairperson of the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation, Ndate Dumankosi. Like I said, I don't know why everyone here is handshaking. I do hugs.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you. Sanibonani. Umfundisi uthandazile. Kodwa ikhwaya nani likhona la. Sizoshaya umhobe wesizwe. Sicela nime nonke ngeenyawo for the national anthem. Siyabonga ngahlala. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Ngathi khona abafuna uqala ingoma singabuye siyibone. Yekeleni kancane kwamanje. Allow me to greet all of you and welcome all of you to the function from the side of the Adelaide, Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation. I think our program director did indicate the whole program, and I wanted just to appreciate the positive response as a foundation when we approached Ubaba Mbeki, because we were toying around the point of saying, who really knows Ubaba Tambo? In the difficult times we're in, we hope if we get to understand really what are the things he did that worked so well for all of us, to a point that we are here, we are where we are right now. But we thought we will be able to get Ubaba Mbeki, and fortunately wavuma ukuthi no, I will be coming. Umama ke wakwakuhamba naye ngaso sonke isikhathi, siyabonga kakhulu mama uZanele. Program director ushilo ukuthi uPremier na ukhona siyambona. Ebesibalindele ngaziyo ngiyabona abantu baningi abanye bangene phakathi kwabanye bekune speaker se legislature yethu eGauteng, which is the former executive mayor waseGuruleni uNtombi Mihwe, fanele ngabe naye ukhona la nathi. Ngimbonile ku MEC, member of the executive council ye provincial government, Nandi Mayathula Khoza. Bekuthiwe ke nobaba uPanyaza Lesufu uzoba khona la. Sifuna ukubonga kakhulu ke ukuthi iprovince nayo ikwazi ukuthi supporte. Kune part enkulu ke khona la which we are going to have in terms of issue ama coins. Governor of the Reserve Bank Ubaba Olechi Seja Khanyago. The governor of the Reserve Bank was very kind to be able to have coins dedicated to Ubaba Utambo. The program director did introduce me, but I do come representing right now office Ligamgcini Sihlalo, the chairperson. The foundation chairperson is Dr. Frini Jinwala. To be here, I think it's under her direct instruction that we should be able to actually do things in a particular way. But for her, she's such a perfectionist, you never really get things right. So after I speak here, I know I will be actually pulled aside to say, you shouldn't have said this. We don't do things like that. So Asisho Gutige, we really appreciate our chair of the foundation. We do have ambassadors that are here. Ambassador of Algeria, Ambassador of Sweden, Namibia Ambassador, United Kingdom High Commissioner, and the Ambassador from Netherlands, who is actually here with her husband. Let me just say, not going through names was just a point of just saying, we do have families. Today we are allowed by two families of both Oliver and Adelaide Tambo, abazali bethu. The Tambo family is here in full force. And we do also have the Tsukudi family led by Umama Ellen Mohanue. That's a sister to Umamu Adelaide Tambo. We do actually have other families. There's the Sulu family that is here. Family Sulu. Thank you. Bonke Bala. We've got actually all of them here. We do actually have the Mutsepe family. We do have as well Lutuli family. Let me just say, because this is a very important program for the country, because it's not for the foundation, not even for the organization of Ubabu Tambo, it's for the whole country. Ku unobaba uEndru Mlangeni. He is our chairperson of the ANC Integrity Committee. Can I also welcome the veterans and stalwarts of the ANC? And I was also informed we do have Ilutuli detachment. You are all welcomed. We also do have among us Bishop of the Anglican Church, Charles May. And if you can allow me in the same tone to say, for all the religious leaders that are here, you are most welcome. There is also leadership of political parties that are here. Ngimbonile uBaba uMpofu, manje kunobaba kodwa ngithi mawibiza uthi umntwana kaphinda ngeke. Angisisho ke ngoba khona ongilahlekela ngizange sambona. Bengithi ngiyambheka ngimboni insizwa kaMalema ayikho la ngaphatha ngiyibona. Iko mayikhona siyayimukela. Isifihlile fanele ukuthi ngikwazi ukuyibona. There are also valued guests we have here today. Yesterday I was lucky enough to have seen the launch of the gallery of uBaba George Bezos at the Apartheid Museum. Thank you. I'm sure abakhona ngaphakathi, the Kagiso Trust executive and board members should be here. Njabulo Ndebele, Prof, Nelson Mandela Foundation Chair, ukhona la. Ningathuki-ke ngithi uBaba Dikgang Moseneke, Chancellor. Akusho ukuthi umthetho angiwazi. Ngimbiza iChancellor ngoba la uyinduna. Kuphethe yena. Angisho ke umama uGrasa Machel naye is here. uGertrude Chope ukhona. Uambassador uLindiwe Mabuza ukhona. Ubabu Mavuso Msimanga uhamba nowakwakhe namhlanje. Angisho ukuthi ubaba Mavuso Msimanga ngithe nowakwakhe. So akahambi yedwa. Yeah. Ubaba Msimango is our first CEO as the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation. He worked very hard to lay the base that we are able to do things in the way where we reach out to most of you. Thank you very much, Baba Mavuso. We do have among us as well Ndate Mweletsi Mbeki. Ukona no acting DG GCIS Pumla Williams. We do have a Vice Chancellor of Fort Hare, Sakela Buhlungu. Let me just say as well, the last bit we're hoping to look at is those of Foundation and Trust that have really worked with us very well. We do have Tlolo Mohlate. Utengmu. Thank you very much. He's from the Somafco Trust. He's the CEO of Somafco Trust. Tricia Sibons, CEO of Harold Travelstein Memorial Center. And then Silo Hatang, CEO Mandela Foundation. There's Thabo Mbeki Foundation that should be with us here today. Principal Ukon. Max Makleke for Charlotte Makleke Foundation board member. And then we do have also Obenewa, CEO of Steve Biko Foundation. Ngoba singabantu esihlonipha isikhathi. Bengithi ngizothi Mongameli sibonge kakhulu ukuthi uvume ukuthi ube la namhlanje. Manje angifuni ukuchaza into engekho. Le ndawo sibekele wena, mawungasondela kimi ngajabula kakhulu. Ningaphakama ke azokwazi ukusondela. Nenza ukuthi akwazi ukushesha afike la ikhona.
Thanks, Chief. Hi, George. Thanks a lot. The Deputy Chair of the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation, Dumangosi, and members and representatives of the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation, our host this evening, Eddie Unjan. Bono Eddie Funde La Pamwa. Eddie Unjan. You're all right. And dear members of the Tambo family, fellow South Africans, comrades, friends, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say that I was very glad indeed that Duma mentioned the presence among us of members of the Lutuli detachment. These are comrades who spent a lot of time together with OR during a very difficult time in the history of our movement. And indeed, I say to people that if they had deserted at that time, the ANC would have died. That it didn't die is because with all of the difficulties that the ANC experienced in the 60s, they didn't desert the movement and they didn't desert the struggle. But thanks to Duma for mentioning their presence among us today. Had OR been alive today, we would have gathered in happy gatherings throughout our country to wish him a very happy centenary birthday. However, as we meet today, to mark the centenary, we still wish to convey a heartfelt happy birthday message to him, our beloved OR and esteemed leader, certain that he will hear our message wherever he is. Accordingly, today, October 27, 2017, our people, joined by the peoples of the rest of Africa and the world, stand up and say in unison, happy birthday, our dear and respected Oliver Tambo, our beloved OR. However, at the same time as we celebrate a 100th birthday, we have gathered here today at a time of great stress for OR's movement, the ANC, and this country, South Africa. The comments we will make about Oliver Tambo as we celebrate the centenary of his birth will emphasize two matters. One of these is that periodically the ANC has had to confront and respond to threats which challenged its very existence. Another is that these threats and the ANC responses have also been related to the development of our country. And this describes what has been somewhat of an umbilical cord between the development of the ANC and the evolution of South Africa. And in this regard, I'd like to argue that for half a century, Oliver Tambo stood out as a defining player in terms of the construction of the relationship described as the respective evolutions of the ANC and South Africa. I've just referred to what I described as threats which challenged the very existence of the ANC. And I'm certain that this phenomenon has not been sufficiently canvassed in the public discourse, correctly to explain and implant in the public consciousness our historical evolution as a country and people. I will now mention three of these threats and elaborate on them later in my comments. By 1940, the ANC was faced with the threat of withering away out of existence. That is, of ceasing to exist because of neglect by a leadership which was too preoccupied with the pursuit of its individual professional interests. The new president of the ANC, Dr. A.B. Xuma, together with the Secretary General, Reverend James Kalata, worked successfully during the 40s to resurrect the ANC. And Oliver Tambo played a central role in this process, including as the first Secretary General of the African National Congress Youth League, and later the Secretary General and Deputy President of the ANC. The ANC, resurrected in the 1940s, became such a threat to our country's white minority regime that it was banned in 1960. And as all of us know, There followed a period of extreme repression imposed on our country by the apartheid regime starting in the 1960s, such that towards the end of that decade, the ANC was virtually wiped out as an organized revolutionary formation inside South Africa. And again, as we all know, exactly at the time of the banning of the ANC, its leadership sent its then Deputy President, Oliver Tambo, out of the country to establish and lead what was described as the external mission of the ANC. And in the end, as had happened during the 1940s, Oliver Tambo had to play a central role, this time as the leader, to help resurrect an ANC which again had almost died, as had been the case in 1940. As I've said, Oliver Tambo led the successful process to defeat the new and extremely serious threat to the very existence of the ANC, which arose after 1960, and helped to rebuild the ANC, which then proceeded to lead the campaign which led to the democratic victory of 1994. I'm arguing that we must pay heartfelt tribute to Oliver Tambo for the central contribution he made during the 1940s to help to resurrect the ANC from its deathbed and position it such that by 1960 it had mobilized the masses of our people to stand out as a strategic and practical opponent which threatened to overthrow the apartheid regime. And further, I'm arguing that we must pay heartfelt tribute to Oliver Tambo for his leadership of the ANC and the rest of the broad democratic movement, such that this movement as a whole recovered from the near destruction brought about by the extreme repression which followed the banning of the ANC in 1960. The ANC is now, during the year of the centenary of the birth of Oliver Tambo, confronted by yet another threat of destruction. And as all of us know, the ANC is now 105 years old. And during the years of its existence, it has faced many challenges to its place as a preeminent and historic representative of the oppressed. These include the challenges posed by the All-African Convention in the 1930s, the formation of the PAC in 1959, the birth of such formations within the ANC as the Gang of Eight during the 1970s, and the formation of the Black Consciousness Movement again during the 1970s. The historical reality is that none of these developments succeeded to displace the ANC as what I've described as a preeminent and historic representative of the oppressed. That is why, accordingly, this evening, I'm not discussing any of these developments, not because I'm trying to downplay their significance. Rather, I'm trying to focus on the strategic and historic challenges which have threatened the very existence of the ANC during the 105 years of its existence. And in the context of everything I've said, I would now like to make the firm and unequivocal observation that the ANC is now facing the third most serious threat to its existence of 105 years. When the ANC faced the threat of existence in 1940, its members successfully intervened to address that threat. And again, when it faced a threat from 1960 onwards, its members successfully intervened to address that threat. And today, the ANC faces the ANC members. The ANC members faced yet another challenge, successfully to intervene to defeat that threat. And the immense and historic challenge we face is to answer the question, does the ANC have the required members who will successfully intervene to address this new threat to the very survival of the ANC? And the ANC faces this third strategic threat during a period when, unfortunately, we no longer have Oliver Tambo among us. And therefore, the eminent leader who played a decisive role in helping our movement successfully to defeat the earlier threats. In this regard, I'd like to argue that the effect of this third challenge, this third threat, and the absolute imperative to defeat it, imposes an obligation on all those who claim to be admirers and supporters of Oliver Tambo, practically to act in a manner which lives up to the example which OR set. Thus, would we give practical expression to what is said as a matter of routine at funerals, that the nation must honor the example set by the departed, consistent with the call, long live the spirit of the heroes and heroines who have left us. In his oration, as the nation laid the mortal remains of Oliver Reginald Tambo to rest just over 24 years ago on May the 2nd, 1993, Nelson Mandela made a commitment which I believe is binding on all of us. And he said, let all of us who live say that while we live, Oliver Tambo will not die. May he, for his part, rest in peace. Go well, my brother, and farewell, dear friend. As you instructed, we will bring peace to our tormented land. As you directed, we will bring freedom to the oppressed and liberation to the oppressor. As you strived, we will restore the dignity of the dehumanized. As you commanded, we will defend the option of a peaceful resolution of our problems. And as you prayed, we will respond to the cries of the wretched of the earth. And as you love them, we will always stretch out a hand of endearment to those who are your flesh and blood. In all of this, we will not fail you, unquote. I've made the assertion that this commitment by Nelson Mandela is binding on all of us, that in all this, we will not fail you. Madiba could make this genuine commitment not as a rhetorical flourish, but as an affirmation of the very close bond of comradeship and friendship that existed between him and Oliver Tambo. And accordingly, Nelson Mandela made the commitments he announced during the oration at funerals, at Oliver Tambo's funeral, seriously to convey a solemn message to the nation. He could have ended his message to the nation merely by making the statement, let all of us who live say that while we live, Oliver Tambo will not die. I say this because Nelson Mandela spoke these words because what Oliver Tambo had done during half a century of struggle had helped to define the destiny of a better life for all the generations which lived on after he had passed on, without exception. And all of this is because Oliver Tambo's life constitutes both a journey through the many phases of the development of South Africa and the attendant liberation struggle from the 1940s to the 1990s, and the promise of liberation and the positive benefits this would bring. Thus, Oliver Tambo was among those in the 1940s who, as leaders and members of the ANC Youth League, stood up to say that the then central task of the ANC, as the leader of our national liberation movement, was to activate the masses of our people to engage in mass action to secure their own liberation. He served among the leaders and activists who helped to ensure that this vision of mass struggle was actually implemented. He served among the leaders and activists who helped our broad movement for national liberation to elaborate and adopt that seminal document, the Freedom Charter, which defined the strategic tasks of the National Democratic Revolution. Oliver Tambo served among the leaders and activists who were to ensure the continuation and intensification of the struggle, despite the banning of the ANC and the implementation by the apartheid regime of its campaign of extreme repression. And this included the successful inclusion of armed struggle into the strategy of the ANC, which meant ending a period of half a century of commitment to nonviolent struggle. He served among the leaders and activists who foresaw that the all-round liberation struggle for national liberation would oblige the apartheid regime finally to concede to the long-standing demand of the ANC and the rest of the liberation movement for a negotiated end to apartheid and white minority rule, and therefore ensured that the movement prepared for this eventuality. What all this means is that Oliver Tambo was present as one of our leaders at all seminal moments in the evolution of the ANC and our struggle during the 50 years from the 1940s to the 1990s. Accordingly, as we mark the centenary of his birth, we must celebrate the enormous contribution which he made to the victory of the Democratic Revolution in 1994. When Dr. A.B. Xuma delivered his presidential address at the ANC National Conference in 1941, he said, quote, "Since Congress was founded and made its initial spectacular success, it has experienced periods of inactivity because you and I believe that organizations led by non-Africans were more dignified than African organizations. And thus we abandoned our organizations and surrendered our leadership to others." And he said, "Fellow countrymen, this is a challenge. Shall we not pick up the gauntlet? South Africa, white and black, needs us. We must pull our full weight. We must make our real contribution to the building and the progress of South Africa to the full benefit, mutual helpfulness, and happiness of all sections, black and white," unquote. And the truth is that when Dr. Xuma acceded to the position of the ANC, of president of the ANC in 1940, the ANC was to all intents and purposes dormant and moribund. And as I've said, he, together with the Reverend James Kalata, worked to resurrect the ANC, and it is in that context that they made the call to pick up the gauntlet. And in that same 1941 presidential address, Dr. Xuma detailed some of the burning issues which faced the African people at the time. And then he went on to say that Congress must take steps for representations to be made to the Right Honorable the Prime Minister, Minister of Defense, the Field Marshal J.C. Smarts, and Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Native Affairs, Colonel Dennis Ritz, on the various burning issues he had identified. And this short history of the ANC I've mentioned is directly related to the vitally important contribution Oliver Tambo made, which I've said led to the victory of the Democratic Revolution in 1994. In a letter written to the ANC and published in January 1956, Dr. Xuma wrote that the foundation representatives of what he called the foundation representatives of the ANC Youth League, quote, "met with me in my library at home and were baptized and established by me and the late Mr. Arvis Lopetema at the Bantuman Social Center in Johannesburg as the African National Congress Youth League." And addressing the delegates in 1944, A.B. Xuma said, "You have been summoned to assemble in this hall to discuss an important question. the question of the formation of an organization to solve the problem of African people, a problem of a future South Africa, you've been called upon to discuss the formation of a youth league under the African National Congress. And he said the proposal of the formation of this organization was passed in Bloemfontein in 1942 and also confirmed in 1943 by the Conference of the African National Congress, unquote. I believe that it is in this context, that the involvement of these then young people in the establishment of the ANC Youth League, among whom its first secretary, General Oliver Tambo, assumes its importance. That importance derives from the fact that it seems obvious that the historic process to resurrect and reactivate the ANC would have been seriously compromised if it had not included the initiative to establish the Youth League as an organ of the ANC charged with the task to mobilize the youth into the struggle. In this regard, I must also mention the important fact that it was also under the Xuma Xalata leadership in 1948 that the ANC Women's League was established to take the place of the Bantu Women's League, which had been established in 1918, led by Charlotte Maxeke. It is also worth noting, and I think all of us should hide our heads in shame, it's also worth noting that it was only through a decision taken at the 1943 conference that the ANC allowed women to join it as members. And the importance of the posture adopted by the Youth League concerning the conduct of the struggle was underlined by the conflict which arose later between Dr. Xuma and the leadership of the Youth League, which was ultimately resolved through the adoption of the 1949 Program of Action. And all of us know that the conflict centered on the matter of what the resurrected and reactivated ANC should do to achieve the liberation of the oppressed. And so that's why it opposed the suggestion by Dr. Xuma that the ANC should petition Jan Smuts and Dennis Reeds, and took the position that there should be no petition submitted to the oppressor. And a vitally important part of the position taken by the Youth League was that the posture of struggle on which it insisted would mean and did mean that the resurrected and reactivated ANC would be transformed into a mass organization capable of mobilizing the millions of our people into the struggle. The changes brought about by that resurrected and reactivated ANC laid the firm basis in terms of which in the end, it was possible to mount a multi-pronged and sustained strategic offensive to defeat the apartheid regime, with the ANC serving as a universally accepted leader of that offensive. I would now like to mention a few bare biographical facts about Oliver Tambo to highlight his important place among the leadership of the ANC over the half-century I've mentioned. And as I've said, he was elected as the first Secretary General of the ANC Youth League in 1944. He was then 27 years old. 3 years later, in 1947, aged 30, he became a member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC. And 6 years later, at the age of 36 in 1953, he was elected Secretary General of the ANC to replace Walter Sisulu, who had been banned. And 5 years later, in 1958, when he was only 41 years old, OR was elected Deputy President to our outstanding leader, Nkosi Albert Luthuli. And the ANC sent him its Deputy President out of the country in 1960, again, as I've said, to head what was then called the external mission of the movement. And that position was confirmed in an ANC conference held in Lobatse in Bechuanaland then in 1962, confirming a decision which had only been taken by the National Executive Committee. And unfortunately, we lost the ANC president, Nkosi A.J. Luthuli, in 1967, who died in suspect circumstances. OR, then 50 years old, became the acting president of the ANC, while continuing as the head of the external mission. And he was elected president of the ANC at the 1985 ANC Consultative Conference held in Kabwe, Zambia. And regrettably, he suffered from a stroke in 1989, which severely limited his capacity to continue fully to play his leadership role. And he handed over the presidency of the ANC to Nelson Mandela when the latter was elected to this position at the 1991 National Conference of the ANC. And that same conference elected OR to the position of national chairperson of the ANC, a position he held until he unfortunately passed away in 1993. And before I started mentioning this short political biography of Oliver Tambo, I'd said that the changes effected during the 1940s by the ANC leadership, which leadership included OR, ultimately created the possibility for the liberation movement to mount a multi-pronged and sustained strategic offensive to defeat the apartheid regime, with the ANC serving as a universally accepted leader of that offensive. And as all of us know, the ANC identified the prongs, what it described as the 4 pillars of that strategy, as mass struggle, the international isolation of the apartheid system, ANC underground work, and the armed struggle. And all of these were important parts of the sustained general offensive which resulted in the ultimate defeat of the apartheid regime. And each of the pillars I've mentioned constituted a complex process with regard both to identifying the specific tasks that had to be implemented, which had to change as circumstances changed, and ensuring the actual implementation of these evolving tasks. Oliver Tambo played a central role with regard to the development of each and all of these pillars, all of which rested on the strategic base established by the changes to the ANC effected in the 1940s, in whose elaboration and implementation, as I've said, OR was a central actor. And as we all know, the ANC leadership took what proved to be a critically important decision when, as we've said earlier, it sent its then Deputy President, Oliver Tambo, out of the country to head the external mission. This was at the beginning of a period of extreme repression, which after some time, and for some time, virtually decimated the structures of the ANC within the country and made it impossible for it fully to discharge its responsibilities within the country as a direct leader of the liberation movement. And as all of us will recall, that included the arrest, assassination, imprisonment of virtually the entirety of the most significant echelons of the leadership of the ANC and related formations. And this elevated the importance of what had been intended to serve only as the external mission of the ANC, placing an obligation on the external mission, in fact, to serve as the headquarters and guiding body of the ANC as a whole. And effectively, this positioned OR as the leader of the ANC, the first among equals, for more than a quarter of a century, which proved to be the then most difficult period in the history of the ANC. And he ultimately came to enjoy the unqualified respect of all sections of the ANC at home and abroad, and the related mass democratic movement. And at the same time, the overwhelming majority of people in the rest of the world, starting from the rest of Africa, recognized him as a legitimate representative and spokesperson of the oppressed majority in our country. I'm saying, therefore, that as we mark the centenary of his birth, we must pay unreserved tribute to him to OR for his vital contribution to the benchmark achievements of the ANC and the broad liberation movement over many decades. And to summarize, I refer you here to the vital changes the ANC decided upon and implemented during the 1940s. The development and implementation of the strategy of mass struggle and the greatest unity of the democratic forces, which played a vital role in the defeat of the apartheid regime. I'm referring to the development of a united international movement for the isolation of apartheid South Africa, which was central to the victory over that regime. And the reconstruction of the ANC and the underground machinery in our country, which enabled the ANC more directly to live up to its responsibility, practically to act as a leader and representative of the oppressed. And I'm referring to the pursuit of the armed struggle, such that despite all challenges, the struggle played a critical role in asserting the resolve of the oppressed to overcome all obstacles to achieve their liberation. And I'm referring to the preparations the ANC undertook to ensure that it was properly equipped to engage in a new field of struggle, that is negotiations with the apartheid regime. I'm insisting that with regard to all of these strategic interventions which made the 1994 democratic victory possible, we had Oliver Tambo as a decisive, leading, and defining player. And for this reason, today, as we mark the centenary of his birth, I have no hesitation to convey my heartfelt view that it is to Oliver Tambo, to OR, that we should both bestow the title, the father of South Africa's democracy. It was not possible that Oliver Tambo could achieve what he did as a leader of the ANC, and as I've tried to indicate, unless he had the personal capacity and attributes in this regard. I was very fortunate that for almost 2 decades, I was privileged to work quite closely with Oliver Tambo within the structures of the ANC. And this gave me some understanding of the character of this eminent patriot and leader of our people. And I'm honored to use this understanding to help us properly to celebrate the centenary of his birth, and therefore to pay tribute to him as one of our most eminent heroes and people's representatives. To come back to the 1941 presidential address by Dr. Kluma, he said, to Congress, we must be loyal and true. And then not that water, this water. Thanks. He said, to Congress, we must be loyal and true. This was Dr. Kluma. To Congress, we must be loyal and true. For Congress, we must forget any personal or sectional interests or gain. We must put the cause and the interests of the people before any expediency. To be true leaders, we must put the interests and welfare of our people above our own, unquote. And much later, in a December 1955 letter to the ANC, which was published in January 1956, Dr. Kluma said, and I quote, leadership means service for and not domination over others. True, he said, true and genuine leaders serve the cause of the people and do not expect the cause to serve them or become a source of profit and honor for them. And he said, Africa expects all her sons and daughters to serve the cause of the people loyally, sincerely, and honestly, unquote. I cite these remarks by A.B. Xuma because as we mark the centenary of OR's birthday, I believe that all our people should understand that OR became a leader of the South African oppressed and more accepted by all at home and abroad because of particular attributes. And at the heart of Oliver Tambo's belief system was exactly what Dr. Xuma had communicated to him and his other youthful comrades, that to Congress we must be loyal and true. For Congress we must forget any personal or sectional interests or gain. We must put the cause and the interest of the people before any expediency. I can confirm that whatever else OR did, during all the years I worked with him, this prescript remained his constant guide. To Congress, we must be loyal and true, and we must put the cause and interest of the people before any expediency. And never would he depart from any action which would violate these two principles. That is loyalty to the ANC and its values, and commitment to pursue the interests, genuine interests of the people. And this makes the correct point that Oliver Tambo was a principled person. Accordingly, all of us knew that in all our interactions with OR, we had to honor the principles and practices, always to tell the truth, to respect the principle of honesty, to exercise our right to state our views, to behave according to agreed rules in terms of our membership of the ANC, and never to promote whatever might be our personal interests by telling lies or engaging in subterfuge. In all of this, we also knew that OR had other personal attributes which made all of us very happy that he had surrendered himself to serve our movement, the ANC, the struggle, and the people as a whole. And this related to the fact that he had a very sharp intellect. As he grew up, he had demonstrated outstanding competence in the natural sciences, including mathematics, physics, and chemistry, and taught these subjects at high school. Nevertheless, he also had the knowledge to engage in debates which discuss issues relevant to the social sciences. He also acquired the necessary qualifications to practice as a lawyer who could and would appear in our courts, especially to defend our people against the ravages of the apartheid system. And as a leader of the external mission of the ANC, among others, he demonstrated his leadership as an activist for the development of the arts in all their forms, including as expressed in the music in which he was especially interested. And the sharp intellect he showed made him a great strategist and master tactician in terms of the conduct of the liberation struggle over the many decades I've mentioned. And he demonstrated that immense capacity in matters of strategy. For instance, when he persuaded our movement to prepare for negotiations and defining the democratic South Africa through those negotiations, even as he led the same movement in its efforts to intensify its offensive to overthrow the oppressor regime. To put this matter more generally, OR understood that the very advances we achieved through struggle would result in producing a qualitatively new situation, presenting us with the task to have to respond to the challenges posed by our own victories. And all of this means that at all times, OR did everything to ensure that our movement never lost sight of the strategic goals it had to achieve at all stages of our struggle. I would also like to suggest that for us to gain an excellent grasp of OR's capacity as a master tactician of our struggle, everybody should study the January 8th ANC anniversary statements he presented during the years 1979 to 1989. I think in those statements, we would see that the comments and proposals in those statements constitute a virtual catalogue of the evolution of our struggle in all its 4 pillars, demonstrating the capacity properly to understand the objective situation and to respond to that situation correctly and on time. It is a matter of common cause that OR succeeded to lead the ANC both to recover from the heavy blows it suffered during the post-1960 period of extreme repression and to resume its legal existence from 1990 as a united organization. And fundamental to that unity were what OR did, working with other leaders of our movement to ensure that our movement as a whole understood and rallied around one, a shared value system, loyally to serve the movement and the people, opposed to unethical practice aiming at self-aggrandizement, and this included aversion to all initiatives by anybody to seek to position themselves as leaders merely to promote selfish interests. This also meant a shared understanding of the movement's strategic and tactical goals and a common commitment to achieve those goals, ready to make the necessary sacrifices in that regard. And it meant a shared commitment among all members of the movement to work with one another as comrades, fully understanding that the realization of the common goal of achieving national liberation and building a democratic, non-racial, and non-sexist South Africa require that these comrades must act together as one united movement. I draw attention to these 3 points concerning the issue of the unity of the movement, because I hear these days calls being made that people must unite. And I'm saying Oliver Tambo was saying you must unite around a certain value system. You must unite. You must unite around certain goals aimed at serving the interests of the people. And we must unite around the issue of behaving truly as comrades and not ladies and gentlemen. And what also contributed greatly to that unity was the manner in which OR conducted the internal discussions within the ANC. He would always listen to and respect all opinions expressed, and then state his own view in a manner which would assure all participants that their views had been taken into account. And this helped enormously to inspire a spirit of inclusivity among the members and a sense of common ownership of everything to do with the movement and the struggle. I must also mention that OR was a convinced Pan-Africanist. This helped further to entrench this outlook throughout the ranks of the ANC and contributed in no small measure to the development of the attitude among millions throughout our continent that the struggle to defeat the apartheid system was as much ours as it was theirs. It is in this context that I'm certain that the important matter of the renaissance of our continent must occupy significant space on our agenda. Earlier I said that the ANC now faces a third threat of destruction since its foundation almost 106 years ago. And this time, that threat emanates from acts of commission originating from within the ANC itself. As we all know, the ANC gained access to state power from 1994 onwards. It was inevitable that this would happen because of the place which the ANC occupied in the hearts and minds of the majority of our people as their true representative. However, the challenge which arose with this access to state power was and is that it could be abused, was and is being abused for purposes of self-enrichment. This means that the ANC contains within its ranks people who are absolutely contemptuous of the most fundamental values of the ANC, at whose center is a commitment selflessly to serve the people. These are people who only see the ANC as a stepladder to enable them to access state power for the express purpose of using that access for self-enrichment. By definition, and these are people who are card-carrying members of the ANC, our national governing party since 1994, but who have completely repudiated the value system which inspired Oliver Tambo throughout his life. And part of the national tragedy in this regard is that the ANC recognized the emergence of this immensely negative phenomenon quite early after 1994. For instance, in his political report at the 1997 National Conference of the ANC, Nelson Mandela said, among other things, a number of, and I quote, a number of negative features within the ANC and the broad democratic movement have emerged during the last 3 years. One of these negative features is the emergence of careerism within our ranks. Many among our members see their membership of the ANC as a means to advance their personal ambitions, to attain positions of power, and access to resources for their own individual gratification. And he continued, accordingly, they work to manipulate the movement to create the conditions for their success. And he said, during this period, we've also been faced with various instances of corruption involving our own members, including those who occupy positions of authority by virtue of the victory of the democratic revolution. These have sought either to steal public resources or to extort financial tributes from the people. And he said, this is not surprising in the light of what we've already said in this report about the entrenchment of corruption in our society in general, and the consequent desperate desire to accumulate wealth in the shortest possible period of time, unquote. And almost 20 years later, and only 3 months ago, I'm quite sure that all of you will remember the ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe delivered what was called a diagnostic organizational report, in which he said, among other things, quote, we owe it to ourselves first, the movement and society, to analyze in detail the implications of a liberation movement that has ascended to power and therefore controls huge resources. Being in power is rapidly becoming a source of political bankruptcy, in that members of the ANC fight for deployment either as councillors, MPLs, and MPs, respectively, as if there is no tomorrow. And he said the use of money to buy votes or elections in the party is at the heart of the decline of the quality of the structures across the board. Money has replaced consciousness as a basis for being elected into leadership positions at all levels of the organization. And he said the ethical behavior of leaders is no longer an issue, as it has been replaced by status. And he said cadres of our movement should be guided by values of honesty, of humility, of hard work, of commitment, of sacrifice, and selflessness. And he said we hardly talk about these values, which in sections of our movement are seen as backward and a hindrance to people accessing quick material benefit. That was Gwede Mantashe only 3 months ago. And in the 1997 political report, as I've cited, Nelson Mandela also said that, quote, in reality, during the last 3 years, we have found it difficult to deal with such careerists in a decisive manner. We ourselves have therefore allowed the space to emerge for these opportunists to pursue their counter-revolutionary goals to the detriment of our movement and struggle. And he said clearly, we have to take all necessary measures to purge ourselves of such members and organize ourselves in a way that will make it difficult for corrupt elements to gain entry into our movement, unquote. But the fact of the matter is that during the last 2 decades, the ANC has failed to do the 2 things which Nelson Mandela mentioned in 1997: to purge itself of the mercenaries who had joined its ranks, and to make it difficult for such elements to join the movement. And that failure surely means that inevitably, the negative situation which Nelson Mandela decried would get worse, as was attested to by ANC Secretary General Mantashe in July. The numbers of those who see the ANC as but a mere tool to access political power and corruptly acquired wealth would increase. In the end, it was inevitable that this would result in the transformation of quantity into a new element, a transformation from quantity into quality in this way. What was and was seen to be abnormal 20 years ago in 1997 would become the norm by 2017. Hence, the observation made by Secretary General Mantashe concerning fights for deployment among ANC members, as if there is no tomorrow. This means that the historic value system of the ANC has become so corrupted that its replacement, that is unprincipled access to political power, and the related corrupt self-enrichment have in fact become the norm within the organization. It is this reality which has led to the universal scramble for deployment, and indeed the repugnant phenomenon of the murders of and among municipal councillors, so prevalent, but not only in KwaZulu-Natal, a matter which is currently being investigated in that province by the Moerane Commission. Necessarily and logically, the qualitative change I've mentioned, arising from the failure to defeat the process of the increase in the numbers of those who remained in the ranks of the ANC for selfish and corrupt reasons, as described by Nelson Mandela, would in the end also affect the composition and quality of the very leadership of the movement. It is therefore perfectly obvious that what has happened is that there has been an institutional ascendance to a position of dominance or major influence at all levels of leadership in the ANC of exactly the negative elements whom Nelson Mandela urged the ANC to defeat. I'm therefore arguing that the transformation of quantity into quality has resulted in the entrenchment within the ANC of a rapacious and predatory value system, and the ascendance to positions of authority or major influence in the leadership structures of the ANC of people who are both the product and expression of that rapacious and predatory value system. I will now cite just one example to illustrate the qualitative change I've been talking about. The 1997 Mahikeng ANC National Conference took an important decision that those who are elected to leadership positions in the ANC should be ready to discharge their responsibilities in that regard, with no expectation that their positions in the ANC entitle them to positions in government. It was therefore decided that ANC candidates for the position of provincial premier should be selected in the same manner as the national ministers, with no requirement that the provincial chair of the ANC would necessarily become the premier. But in the run-up to the 2007 Polokwane ANC National Conference, a spurious argument emerged within the ANC about a non-existent problem of two centers of power, so-called. And as a result of this, the Polokwane Conference took the diametrically opposed position to the Mahikeng Conference. It now said, instead, that any person elected as president of the ANC would be the ANC candidate for the position of president of the Republic. This also meant that the provincial chair of the ANC would be the provincial premier. This unfortunate decision meant that formally the ANC took the decision that occupation of senior positions in the ANC was a guaranteed route of access to state power. Exactly the kind of understanding which the movement had sought to discourage among the membership as a whole. The negative situation I've sought to describe, according to which, particularly as a governing party, allows itself to behave according to a rapacious value system of conscious abuse of state power for corrupt self-enrichment, and permits itself to be influenced by leadership informed by that value system, necessarily produces certain systemic consequences. And among these are the corruption and weakening of the ANC and the rest of the progressive movement. The corruption and weakening of the institutions of the democratic state, the undermining of the precepts and practices of our constitutional democracy, state capture, failure to achieve significant advances with regard to achieving the goal of a better life for all, and virtual abandonment of the historic Pan-Africanist perspective of the ANC. To emphasize how dangerous these inevitable outcomes are, I can well imagine how much those are now rejoicing who were the diehards who belonged to the apartheid system and who never fully accepted that ours should become a non-racial democracy. Perhaps the most famous of Karl Marx's thesis on Feuerbach is the last, which says that philosophers have hitherto only interpreted the world in various ways. The point, however, is to change it. Now, I've sought to suggest that the negative situation currently affecting and characterizing the ANC will, unless it is addressed correctly and immediately, sooner rather than later, result in the destruction of the ANC. It would therefore seem that those who remain genuine members of the ANC, honestly committed to its historic value system, centered on selfless service to the people, should take the necessary steps to change the self-destructive course on which the movement has embarked, which among others has lost the ANC much support among the people, as demonstrated in the successive national, provincial, and local government elections since 2009 to date. As a first step, these members of the ANC must genuinely accept that the movement is immersed in a deep crisis and then proceed to characterize the source and the nature of the problem, as Oliver Tambo did, which twice saved the ANC from destruction, understanding that without a correct diagnosis, there can be no effective and successful cure. And I believe that this should implement what Nelson Mandela suggested in 1997, when he said we have to take all necessary measures to purge ourselves of such members and organize ourselves in a way that will make it difficult for corrupt elements to gain entry into our movement. And in this regard, I believe that the ANC policy document through the eye of a needle, the ANC oath, which is in its constitution, the values stated by A.B. Xuma and accepted and implemented by Oliver Tambo and others since the 1940s, and the conduct of lifestyle audits would help to determine exactly who is a genuine member of the ANC. I would also suggest that these members should conduct an open and honest assessment of the damage that has been done as the ANC allowed itself to fall under the influence of the rapacious value system and leadership I've mentioned, and decide on measures that must be taken to address that damage. In this context, the ANC members to whom I've referred must come back to the matter of redefining or restating the current strategic goals it faces, which I'm certain would include the eradication of poverty, the eradication of inequality, the strengthening of the democratic state, and African renewal. And here I'm not talking about drawing up some wish list and pretend that this is the kind of program that is required. I'm talking about the setting of strategic goals and indicating the realistic measures which should be adopted to achieve the set objectives, following on the footsteps of what I said about O.R. Tambo, uniting the movement around agreed and clear goals. And I'm making all these suggestions about what genuine members of the ANC should do out of respect for the fact that O.R. never merely sought to interpret our situation, but always worked to change it. And as all of us have sought to celebrate the centenary of his birth, we have shouted slogans such as, "Long live the spirit of Oliver Tambo." And some among us, out of respect for O.R., have even gone so far as to claim that they know how he would respond to some specific current situation or event. However, I believe that the best way to honor Oliver Tambo, as we mark the centenary of his birth, would be to live up to the example he has set by always being loyal to the truth, by always being loyal to principle and the historic value system of the ANC, by defeating the rapacious and predatory value system and the related leadership which are holding the ANC hostage, by helping to unite the ANC and the rest of the progressive movement and the people as a whole around a realistic program for the acceleration of the advance towards achieving the goal of a better life for all, by helping to ensure the full and unfettered functioning of our country as a constitutional democracy, and by reasserting in practical ways the principle and practice that we share a common destiny with our fellow Africans, including those in the African diaspora. I'm convinced that if especially the generations currently in the ANC did all of this, walking in the footsteps of Oliver Tambo, they would help to achieve the historic goal of rescuing the ANC from destruction, as Oliver Tambo did in his day. History will answer the question unequivocally whether we had the courage to live up to the extraordinary legacy which Oliver Tambo left behind. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, President Thabo Mbeki, my leader, my intellectual crush. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, please. To recognize each and every single individual who has made this event, this historical occasion, what it is today. We've had such incredible contributions. Ladysmith Black Mambazo, for their unplugged performance. They certainly deserve a round of applause. Absolutely. Can we get a round of applause for the Unity School Choir? I'll be welcoming them back on the stage before I introduce the CEO of the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation, Melinda Vilagazi. I will call on the choir to come on stage. We will be hearing from this incredible group, Ladysmith Black Mambazo, just beforehand as we get into our cake cutting. But also, I'd really like to thank every single one of the passionate individuals that are here tonight. Your songs, your inspiration, the emotion, I mean, it is palpable. I can feel it literally in my veins. So
all right, former President Thabo Mbeki delivering the lecture at Wits University in honor of O.R. Tambo, the centenary. And it was known that he was critical of the current ANC leadership, but he has never, as
I know you know who I'm talking about. Yes. So his inspiration for the group came about, believe it or not, through a dream in which he literally saw a choir of children singing and dancing, and he soon transferred that dream to real life when he formed the group that we know today as Ladysmith Black Mambazo. And they are here, as you've experienced them throughout the evening. And as we know, well, some of you may not know that they've been nominated 16 times for Grammy Awards, deservingly so. So 2017 marks the 57th year in music for Ladysmith Black Mambazo, and they are still going strong. And I'd like us to give them a very warm round of applause. Ladysmith Black Mambazo, ladies and gentlemen.
Wangishila nomathemba wangishila ngingedwa nomathemba lokoke lo yangimangalisa lokoke lo yangimangalisa Mangibona intandane eyayihleli ngaphansi komthunzi lo yangimangalisa hawu hayibusa igama layo ayiphendulanga yabheka phansi yaze yakhala izinyembezi nomathemba wangishiya selengedwa nomathemba wangishiya sele ngedwa unomathemba wami wangishiya
sakulile
sele ngedwa unomathemba wami wangishiya
sanambi
sele ngedwa unomathemba
sanambi sakolo nomathemba kasaphalele ncwadi ncane sanambi nomathemba kasaphalele ncwadi ncane sanambi nomathemba kasaphalele ncwadi ncane sanambi themalo kasaphalele ncwadi ncane amusanambi nomathemba kasaphalele ncwadi ncane mama sanambi nomathemba wema kasaphalele ncwadi ncane amusamlambethi wemama nomathemba awodwa yena saqabana ngana sanambi themalo kasaphalele ncwadi ncane obuya nomathemba obuya nomathemba obuya nomathemba kasaphalele ncwadi ncane obuya njalo obuya wena ulapha eGoli obuya nomathemba yeah kasaphalele ncwadi ncane uzobhala wena uzobhala wena uzobhala nomathemba uzobhala wena uzobhala nomathemba sinawe wena awusohliwa zindondo sohliwa zindondo awuthena lawe nomathemba sohliwa zindondo wathena lawe nomathemba sohliwa zindondo wathena lawe wathena lawe sithando sami sohliwa zindondo wathena lawe
Thank you very much. Sure, siyabonga kakhulu, siyabonga. Ngiyabona aqedi. Do you want more? Let's give the people what the people want.
Sanibona. Ubaba uThambo, utata uThambo wayewumculi. Wayecula kahle kakhulu. So ukucelebrate iminyaka yakhe yokuzalwa u100. Ngiyacela ukuba siculisane sonke leli culo ngoba unathi la ngespirit. Ngiyathemba ke sizoyishaya sonke. Ngizoyiqala nje mina bese nayivumani. Maweni we baba silale 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 maweni we baba Homeless, homeless, moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake. And we are homeless, we are homeless,
moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake.
And we are
Homeless,
we are
homeless, moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake. And we are homeless,
Homeless.
homeless,
Boom, boom.
moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake.
inhliziyo yami,
Inhliziyo yami,
inhliziyo yami,
inhliziyo yami,
inhliziyo yami.
inhliziyo yami,
Angilela makhaza,
inhliziyo yami,
awulele
inhliziyo yami,
inhliziyo yami,
inhliziyo yami, inhliziyo yami,
awulele
inhliziyo yami, inhliziyo yami,
mama.
inhliziyo yami, inhliziyo yami.
Strong wind,
Strong wind, destroy our homes. Many dead tonight it could be.
strong wind,
Strong wind, strong wind. Many dead tonight it could be. And we are homeless,
Homeless.
homeless.
Boom, boom.
Moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake.
Homeless.
Homeless,
Boom, boom.
moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake. We're homeless, we're homeless. We're moonlight sleeping on a midnight lake.
somebody sing, somebody sing,
Hello, hello, hello.
somebody sing, somebody cry,
Why?
somebody sing, somebody sing,
Hello, hello, hello.
somebody sing, somebody cry,
Why?
somebody sing.
Hito mango. Hito mango. Hesando balonkeles. Hito mango. Hito mango. Hesai bamba pate.
Bamba wakhala madoda, yelele mama.
Hesai bamba pate.
Bamba wakhala madoda, yelele mama.
Hesai bamba pate.
Somebody sing, somebody sing,
Hello, hello, hello.
somebody sing, somebody cry,
Why?
somebody sing, somebody sing,
Hello, hello, hello.
somebody sing, somebody cry, kulumani,
Khulumani sizwe.
singenze njani,
Bayajabula basithanda.
Siyabonga kakhulu. Lady Smith, Black Mambazo. Ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause. Thank you. A standing ovation is indeed absolutely necessary. Okay. All right. So I would like to, before I invite Melinda Vilagazi, the CEO of the foundation, to come give her closing remarks. There is no party without a cake. Am I right or am I right? Huh? I'm right. All right. So before we do that, I'd like to welcome the Wits Choir to the platform. You know, we cannot proceed without the Unity Choir here on the stage. So this group was originally called the Witwatersrand University Choir and was founded by students from two diverse student bodies. And the first was the University Choral Society, and they decided to use the profits from their 1961 production of Oklahoma to buy choral music and start a choir. So on the other hand, at the same time, a group of students on the Students' Engineering Council also decided to form a choir. And towards the end of that year, the two groups combined and the Wits Choir was formed. And their motto is excellence through diversity. They have been a very strong thread throughout tonight's proceedings. Help me give them a round of applause as they come onto the stage, ladies and gentlemen. I would also like to invite members of the Tambo family who are here today. I cannot mention each and every single one of you by name, but I see you, Mr. and Mrs. Tambo. I would like to invite you to come onto the stage for the cutting of the cake, as well as every single member of the Tambo family who are here today. A round of applause for Mr. and Mrs. Tambo and the Tambo family, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. and Mrs. Tambo Jr. All right, so I would like to hand over to Lady Speak Black Mambazo to just usher us into song as we cut the cake. Over to you.
This following song is a special tribute song created in honor of Ubaba Oliver Tambo. We thank his son, Dali Tambo, and our manager, Xolani Majosi, for coming up with this concept. In the song, we collaborated with Lyra and Salif Keita, but they are not here today. We'll be singing this song for the first time in public, so we hope you enjoy the song. But we also must invite you. On Sunday, we have a special tribute concert in Durban for Baba Oliver Tambo on Sunday, the 29th. So we invite you all to come to the concert in Durban.
Alwele kululeko yase South Africa besu OR Tambo umshiya ngaphandle ubabu OR Tambo iqhawe.
Long live the spirit of Tambo.
Long
live the spirit of Reginald
Tambo, first class student in mathematics and physical
science. Long live the spirit of Tambo.
Long
live the spirit of Reginald
Tambo,
Oh,
first class student in mathematics and physical
science.
Siyakubongela qabane lami.
We salute you, Oliver Tambo. We salute you, freedom fighter. You broke down the walls of apartheid, Oliver Tambo. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. We salute you, Oliver Tambo. We salute you, freedom fighter. You broke down the walls of apartheid, Oliver Tambo. Wozanini nonke,
Wozani ma-Afrika,
wozani ma-Afrika.
Sihloniphe uBaba Tambo, who led us in the struggle.
Wozanini nonke, nonke.
Wozani ma-Afrika.
Wozani ma-Afrika.
Sisoluthi iqabane uThambo obuye mbizana.
Wozanini nonke.
Wozani ma-Afrika.
Wozani ma-Afrika. Sihloniphe iqhawe lethu Tambo. Sihloniphe iqhawe lethu Tambo. Wozanini nonke.
Wozani ma-Afrika.
Wozani ma-Afrika.
Iqabane uThambo obuye mbizana. Angekubala maqhawe alwela inkululeko yase-South Africa bese u-OR Tambo umshiya ngaphandle ubaba u-OR Tambo iqhawe.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Lady Smith, Black Mambazo. And now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, or shall I say, comrades, visionaries, and thought leaders of Africa, it's time for the cake cutting. And I shall call on Dali Tambo to proceed officially with the cutting of the cake. Thank you very much. Dali, I'd like to invite you to the podium with your permission. I know that, I'm hijacking you right now, but would you just care to say a few words tonight?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. What a stunning year. This centenary year, we've seen this outpouring of love from October, in fact, last year, in terms of song, dance, speeches, lectures, from the presidency, the IMC led by Comrade Jeff Hadebe, the provinces, the municipalities, the cities, NGOs, people across the length and breadth of South Africa have, in a beautiful way, in many beautiful ways, been celebrating the life of Oliver Tambo. We thank you on behalf of his family here, our family in the Eastern Cape, his friends, and what he considered family in other countries. They all love what's been going on in South Africa. They love seeing our nation say thank you, honoring and celebrating his life. I thank you all deeply from the bottom of our hearts for the many ways in which you've done that, and especially for tonight, our former President Thabo Mbeki. Thank you so much, sir. It's been a great honor. Our Premier, David Makura, thank you again for standing with us. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to mention one thing. I don't think Dr. Frini Jinwala is here, but her leadership of the foundation, Duma Nkosi's leadership. And I'd really love Linda Vilakazi to stand up. She's been outstanding, not only in organizing today, but the whole year. Her and her staff have really done an incredible job. There she is. But from the family, we love you, he loved you, and to all of you, black and white, young and old, thank you again. To all the people of the South. May your gods be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dali. I see what you did there. All right. So I would like Lady Smith, Black Mambazo, to lead us into song, to sing Ntate OR Tambo, happy birthday. Sure. One more thing from Dali Tambo.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. 19 years ago, on exactly this day, I became not just the son of Oliver Tambo, but the father of Oliver Tambo. My son, Oliver, was born on that day. Yes, exactly. Give him a round of applause. It's quite a feat. It's actually my wife who you should be applauding for her accuracy. But since his birth, he's every year had to celebrate his birthday behind the scenes because it's always been his grandfather's birthday. And at one ANC function where the songs were going and he was about 3 years old, he turned to me and said, "Dada, why are they singing about me?" Now he knows who they were singing about. But for that reason, we try to be inclusive. And so tonight, as you sing happy birthday to his grandfather, please sing for Oliver as well. Thank you.
Happy birthday to Oliver and Oliver. Over to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Hip hip.
Hooray!
Hip hip.
Hooray!
Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh. Again, for Oliver Jr., ladies and gentlemen.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Junior. Happy birthday to you.
Hooray! All right, let's hand it over to Oliver Tambo Jr. It's his birthday after all. To say a word or two, ladies and gentlemen. It's all yours.
Thank you very much. That was fantastic, much appreciated. I believe today has been a huge success. We're all extremely proud as a family. We were just blown away by how successful everything is. Really, thank you, everyone who's put in such an amazing amount of effort towards this. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Oliver. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lady Smith, Black Mambazo. Thank you to the Oliver Tambo family, or rather the Tambo family, including Oliver Tambo Jr. on his birthday. A round of applause for them, ladies and gentlemen. So before I call on the woman who is the visionary that is ensuring that we live and take forward the legacy of OR Tambo, Linda Vilakazi, the CEO of the foundation, I'd like to just invite the Unity Choir onto the stage, the Unity School to come onto the platform. Are they here? All right. Please join us on the stage at this moment before we close the ceremony. It is very important that you are here. So, ladies and gentlemen, the next and the final speaker for today's proceedings, Linda Vilakazi, is a woman who joined the foundation as CEO on the 5th of September, 2016. And she took over from Mr. Mavuso Msimang. Now, she's worked in various institutions, including the private sector, education, and of course, the development sector, youth organization, local government, and academia. She is fellow of the Africa Leadership Initiative and Aspen Global Leadership Network. And to me, she is a woman who has courage. She is a woman who is really, truly someone for me that embodies everything that Ndate OR aspired for us to become. And I'm truly honored to know her. I'm honored to suckle from her wisdom. And ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you, can we have the choir on the stage, please? Thank you. A round of applause for the choir, please. It is absolutely vital that they are here before we close this ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the CEO of the Oliver and Adelaide Tambo Foundation, Linda Vilagazi.
Wow. It's finally over, or is it the beginning? Good evening, Mr. President. Good evening, Tate Makura. Esteemed guests. You know, initially I had ladies and gentlemen, but after the president spoke, I scratched it out. And then I said, esteemed guests and comrades. Good evening. But before I go on, I see here Gutubab Edifundi is here with us. Baba, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's really an honor to have you here. I would like to start by thanking the president, and I know he's been thanked a lot of times, but it's never enough to thank somebody like President Mbeki, especially after the challenging words that he gave us tonight. But I think in him I've learned that he actually embodies the spirit of Obab Tambo. I must say it wasn't an easy task being told to go and request him to come and speak tonight. But I was humbled by how humble he was and his immediate willingness to serve. And he continues to serve. For that, Mr. President, we say thank you very much. We have tonight very clearly noted the challenges that you placed upon us. And I want to stand here tonight and pledge that on behalf of this foundation, and I bet I'm also speaking on behalf of the trustees and the family, that all the challenges that you gave us tonight, we will take them serious, and they would be part of what forms the next journey of this foundation. We would be part of those in South Africa who ensures that the spirit that you spoke about lives on, and that we never disappoint Oliver Tambo. Before I move on, we have a very special gift for you, and I'm going to ask one of my team members to just walk up to you and hand you this little gift. It is a gift that was launched on the 4th of October this year, so you can guess. Anybody wants to guess? Absolutely. It is the first and ever made coins with the face of Obab Oliver Tambo. And to you, we say thank you, Mr. President. As I said, our work is now cut out. We're only 6 years old, and from tonight, from this year, I think we clearly know what our work is. And amongst the many things that we have dedicated us to do, I want to just briefly about the fact that we are going to be steeped deeply in working in education. I come from the education field, and I've been very inspired by even Obab Oliver Tambo's commitment to education. So as a foundation, there's a pledge that we have made that amongst many things, we're going to focus on the refurbishment of schools in rural areas. I think it is a shame that we still have learners who learn in mud schools. And can you believe it? One of those schools, which is a mud school, is the one and only school in this country named after Oliver Tambo. It is the Oliver Tambo Technical High School in Kantolo. We have started, and some of you in this room are supporting us, and we're calling on more of you so that we work very steadily through all the rural areas and we make sure that we participate in doing that. So before I even go further, I'm going to stop and allow the one school that inspires me, that makes me talk like this, which is the Unity High School, to give us a song at least. Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll hear from them just now when I finish. So this is a cue for me to be quicker. Unfortunately, I have to really thank a few people. Before I even get to the partners that made today possible, I think there's somebody I really want to thank. And I want to thank Ntate Mavuso Msimang. Because today, as a foundation, everyone who works in that foundation was handpicked by him. Natasha came with Ntate Mavuso, Nolwazi came with Ntate Mavuso, and I came in because he found me somewhere and brought me in. And that's the total staff of the foundation, by the way. The one amazing thing about him is that from the day I took over last year from him, he disappeared. And I thought, what sort of company is this? Who does handover and stuff like that? And then he later reappears very quietly and he says, no, I don't want to be in your way. And I'll only come when you need my help. And for that, I thank you. At first, I thought you were strange, but you've been an amazing inspiration. Thank you very much for that. Umam Freni in absentia, she's our chair. And Babduma spoke about her boy. If you've never had a tough boss, please come talk to me. Mam Freni is the toughest boss ever to work with. But somewhere in there lies an amazing wisdom. So if you choose not to listen to the toughness, but you listen to the message, you would be the best. So if anything we did well today, it is because of that wisdom that always comes in that stern voice, that angry voice. Or when she drops the phone because you just don't know what you're doing. And you think you really are at your wit ends, but you sit and listen and you say, but she had a point. And for that, I really want us to acknowledge her because she really has given a lot to this country. Of course, I mentioned that our staff complement is only the three of us, but we couldn't have pulled this year, only the three of us. We were blessed by 4 young unemployed graduates. Mr. President, the youth of this country are the future. I must say, I've been amazed by the willingness to give for free. We have in our team Iteheleng, Lungisa, Ayanda, and Kineilwe. These young people graduated and were not yet in jobs, and they've been working with us the whole year. To you, I say thank you. Of course, I'll be wrong not to thank my trustees. All of them, all of you. The sad thing is half of them are like Tambo lights. They're very endeared to him, his old comrades. So when you try and have a board meeting, you first have to listen to stories and stories and stories. And you wonder, when am I going to get to my governance issues? And then one of them says, don't worry, Linda Ubabdum. Lungile, you'll get there. Let them speak. And then the board meeting takes 6 hours. So please pray for us. But thank you to my trustees. Lastly, in the category of the people I really want to thank, I truly, truly want to thank the Tambo family. I don't think it's really that easy to give over your name and hand it over to others and say, here is our treasure, here is the name that we so believe in, and may you look after it. And we are aware that you gave us the most precious name that you could ever have, and for that we are grateful. And thank you, Dali, thank you, Tembi, thank you, Zelani, and thank you, everybody, even the group from Kantolo, they are here. Can we see the Kantolo team? They are the Tambo families here from Kantolo. I think they are hiding somewhere, but thank you so much for that you have given to us. As I said, we couldn't have hosted this evening without the support of our partners. And very quickly, some of them, you've seen them on the screen earlier. But I need to truly thank the Motsepe family. My precious Realeboga. The Motsepe family stayed with us from the day we were established up until today. They've been the sole funders, the anchor, the core of the foundation. We are because of your support. To Telkom, in the leadership of Ndate Sipho Maseko, you came on board just when you needed us. And when we thought you'd just support us now, you said, this is a 3-year relationship. Releboga, Telkom. Sanral also came on board. I think they truly built bridges and roads, because through Sanral, we met many other people, and it was because of them that part of today is such a success. Somewhere in your bags, you will find